show on Facebook and the Wynn Network, showing in 380 million homes worldwide. We got a great show for you today. We have my sister Sharon Wynn, a voice of victory, overcoming domestic violence. She's written a book, and we're going to talk to her about a book that she's written called Unmute Your Heart that's going to change lives and is changing lives across the country. And also we have Apostle D.D. Christmas, who we're going to be talking about ministry during the pandemic, how he and the other pastors in the country have managed. And he's been one of the brothers that I've always used in ministry that has stayed busy even during the pandemic. So we're going to talk to him. But first, I have an empowerment. Every segment, every time we will start, I will give you an empowerment segment to give you some insight and some encouragement to get you through the week. And we're going to be back after this, and we're going to be talking about for a few minutes, do you value your time? I'll be back after this. Tell somebody, share this, like, and let people know, hey, you got to check out the John Wynn Show because it's going to be life-changing. We'll be back after this. All right, we're back. Hey, listen, I want to ask you a question. Do you value your time? Procrastination is the thief of time. I remember years ago when my father, he was a very profound and businessman in the community, helping people, changing their lives. He never said no to people. They had an open line of communication to him at all hours of the night. It didn't matter what time. He was one of those old school guys that believed in helping people, getting the problem solved no matter what. And one night, or early one morning, about 2 or 3, me and my friends, we were hanging out, and we were hiding down in my mom and dad's room because my father would sleep with the television on, and the door was open, and we was watching HBO. And as we was watching HBO, around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, the phone rings. My dad is in a deep sleep. You hear him snoring. He's just out cold like a light. He was a businessman. He was always working all days, every day of the night and days. And so the phone rings at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and he wakes himself up out of this dead sleep. And he answers the phone as if he's been awake all day. And he says, hello? And come to find out, on the other side of the phone call was someone that was destitute about their son that got in trouble, that was in jail because he didn't value his time. So as always, my dad gets up, he tries to see what he can do. He knew the city mayor, he knew the city manager, he knew the judges, he knew everyone. So he went to go see what he could do. And even though he helped that guy out of that situation, the man still got in trouble again and again because he failed to value his time. I want to talk for a few minutes again and give you the acronyms of time. T stands for time. The reason it's so precious is because you can't get it back. Once you lose it, it's gone. And most of us do not value our time because we are always dealing with people that don't value us. And when people don't value you, they won't value your time. In other words, they'll call you in the middle of the day and say, hey, can you come do this for me? Or can you go do this? Can you run over here? Because they feel like your time is not valuable. And when you're not valued in your time, you're also not valued in resources. Don't you know people pay you for your time? That's why you work 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, 14 hours a day, because they're paying you a piece of your life and your time for what they feel you're worth. So if you're making $8 an hour, $10, $12, $20, $100 an hour, it's because it's something about you that causes them to value who you are, what you are, and the time that you contribute to the company. Number 2, I. I stands for ideas. What are you doing with the ideas that God has given you or placed in you for your dreams, your vision, your goals? The ideas that can change your stream of revenue, your ideas that can change your financial economic status. But if you don't know who you are, and you don't know that you go to college, even though it takes time, and you go and gain the information you need, it also creates a value on you. When you have ideas and you have opportunities in you and outside of you that you know how to bring to pass or bring to the next level, you become valuable. And we don't value our ideas, so that's why we just give them away. We just tell anybody who don't care. Have you been? I've been around people that didn't value who I was, and I shared an idea that I had that could make millions or make thousands of dollars. But because people don't value the idea that you're giving them, they will just bury it. Dr. Miles Monroe said something very powerful. He said, the greatest ideas and dreams are in the grave. Why are your dreams not being fulfilled? Why aren't your ideas not coming to fluorescent? What are you doing not to bring your ideas to fruition and the time to bring and develop it? The next word is M, for money. Yeah, money. You know how we say time is money? Exactly, time is money, because you are paid for the time you are on a job. When you get so valuable, people do not waste their time. In fact, when you're dealing with a certain level of power, power tells you, listen, man, I'll give you $100,000. I'll give you whatever you want for this time because I need you. And when you are valued and when you value yourself and you value your ideas, then money will automatically come. Money is just a byproduct of what you are. Money is not who you are. Money is a byproduct of what you are. Because most people value themselves and put money as the emphasis. It's not money. People put emphasis on you. When you see investors, they say, I'm going to invest in you, not the product, because I don't know what the product does, but I believe in you. And when they believe in you, they believe in you and your time and your ideas, that they're willing to put big money behind you because they know you're going to bring it to pass. T, time, I, idea, M, money. And the last thing is E, for eternity. After you finished your time here on earth and you secured it for your legacy and your destiny and you fulfilled your purpose, are you ready for your eternal end? Where are you going to spend eternity? Because that is endless. It has no measurements through a tick and a tock. It has no measurements through what time of day. It has no AM or PM to it. It has no midnight or AM or PM to it. All it is eternity. What are you doing to secure your place in eternity? I want to just give you this, and that that was very impactful. About maybe 2010, I had a minister at the church that was there, served with my father, served with my brother-in-law, and also served with me. His name was Elder Fred Murchison. Elder Fred Murchison was a lover of cars, and he loved the cars. He took time, he bought cars, and always went and shopped for cars. He was a lover of cars. This one particular day that Elder Fred Murchison was going to view some cars at Chrysler's where he frequent often. He's walking across the street, and this is about 2008. He's walking across the street, and the guy in Reno, they didn't have a crosswalk or a light where it stopped traffic. It just had the lights in the road that kind of blinked, so you had to be aware and cautious of driving in that area when those lights would blink. So as he's walking across the street, another car obscured another vehicle's man's eye structure to where he could not see. And he looked at his phone for 6 seconds. He looked at his phone for 6 seconds, and when he looked up, he hit Fred Murchison. Fred Murchison went to the hospital that day, and he was pronounced dead. 6 seconds changed a man's life because he wasn't ready. He wasn't prepared. He got blindsided by his phone. What's blindsiding you? What's stopping you from saying, you know what, it's time for me to do something better for me, something better for my friends, something better for my family? I want to leave these points with you. This week, I want you to think about time. You're valuable. You're valuable to society. You're valuable to your family. you're valuable to others. But I want you to think about 6 things I want to give you. The first thing is make your time count. What do you do when you first get up? Do you meditate? Do you pray? Do you read? Do you study? Or do you go to Facebook? Do you put all the negative stuff in you? Put on the news, listen to all that horrific stuff. Who got killed? Who's still alive? Who's broke? Who don't have no money? What do you do when you first wake up? It's very important that you put something in you first, positive and internally, and letting God have a peace in your mind and your heart so you can focus on the day. 2, get away from people that don't value your time. Stop dealing with people that don't value your time. You know how you can tell when people don't value your time? Because they interrupt you anytime, any day, at all hours of the night. 3, procrastination is a thief of time. Stop procrastinating on your dreams. Get busy with your goals. Make them come to pass. Make them live before you have to go to the next place. Number 4, people that don't value your time people that don't value you also don't value your time. 5, spend more time developing yourself. You will attract. Success is what you attract by the person you become. And number 6, you can't get the time you wasted back. So be careful how you handle it. Thank you again for being empowered. And next, we're getting ready to come for our next show. We got Apostle Dwayne Christmas all the way from Oakland, California. He's coming with us, and we're going to talk to him. We'll be back after this. $1995, preparing for the greatest day of my life in ministry, and started pastoring. Started a small business, started a small family. And as I'm going through these things, I'm so excited, but certain circumstances happened. My sister, she was 19 years old, getting ready to get married that year. She was a beautiful young girl. She says she's coming to help me. I'm excited about her helping me. And she's excited about her wedding. All kinds of new things are happening in my life. And suddenly she goes to her fiance's house. She's studying for a test. She's talking to my older sister on the phone, and as she's talking to my older sister on the phone, my older sister said the phone just drops. She's yelling her name, Rachel, Rachel, what's going on, Rachel, Rachel? Rachel's fiance is yelling in the back, Rachel, Rachel. Get to the hospital that night, and they pronounce her dead. The uncertainty of not knowing what to do in a time of struggle, that you begin to develop gods of consciousness, doubt, fear against the Almighty God. You think he's doing something to you wrong. Why did you allow this to happen? She was this. Questions go through your mind. But then you have to realize, what is the truth? And I would never leave you nor forsake you. And lo, I'm with you always, even unto the end of the age. Never allow the wrestle that you go through, mentally, physically, emotionally, to convince you that there's nothing greater than to have faith in God. Because God is the one that will bring you through every battle that you may face. right, all right, all right. Amen. This is Dr. John Wynn. Thank you again for tuning back into Dr. John Wynn Live. I have my dear friend, Apostle Christmas. Listen, I want you to share, reach out, text us if you have any questions. We do have a few minutes where we will answer some of the questions. If you talk right now, we got people right there live, ready to help you with what you need. Listen, if you haven't got a copy of my book, if you write us or go to Dr. John Wynn, that's DoctorJohnWynn.com, and you can order my book, The Life-Changing Book, Wrestling with God. I'm talking about your conscience, the little G in our minds that stopped us from getting to the next level. So get a copy of this book. Please share and tell people that Apostle Christmas, DD Christmas, is on the air. Dr. Apostle, how are you, Doc?
Man, I'm good, and I'm glad to be here with you today.
Man, I'm so glad you came in, man. You know, we've been working together in ministry. I remember when I first started my church back in 1995. In 1995, we were preaching, and you were a legend. You were a legend. I mean, I had a member that lived in Fresno, and when she came to Sacramento, she was with us for a few years, and then she went back to Fresno, and she joined a church, and there was this guy that was always bragging and talking about Apostle Christmas. He's such an anointed man, Apostle Christmas. I was like, who's Christmas? And this was back in 95, 96, and we didn't connect until at least I think maybe 10 years later.
Yes.
Like what, 2006 or something?
2006.
So tell the audience, how did you get started in ministry, and what is it that you've seen from the time you started to where we are now?
Okay. Well, as far as getting started in ministry, it started in my home with my mother. Mm-hmm. The foundation of, we were in a Christian home. You're going to live a Christian life. Mm-hmm. We went to church, and you were involved in church, and that pretty much got the ball rolling. Mm-hmm. And I had great leaders. I had great mentors. I was thinking before we came in, the church I grew up in was a little small church. I've told you about it. Mm-hmm. Pastor played the guitar, his wife played the piano, and it was a bunch of children. But he had the greatest youth ministry. He ministered to the youth. And just as a plug, his two sons are pastors today. Wow. And it's the same thing with me. I'm a pastor because of his ministry. As I grew up, moving to the Bay Area, went to a fantastic church. We moved back to the Los Angeles area, and that's why I came in encounter with my pastor at the age of 15. I joined his church, Prophet Roger DeCure, and from 15 until today, that is still my pastor.
So now with preaching, I guess you started preaching doing revivals. How old were you when doing revivals?
I did my first revival. I was about 15.
At 15? What drew you to ministry? Was it the tents? Was it God's general? What was it that made a 15?
All my life, I wanted to be a preacher. When I was a little kid, elementary school, I wanted to be a preacher. And I'd heard so many times, the call is on you. That boy gonna be a preacher. And so that was it was just in me.
Now, was your daddy a preacher, a bishop, or a superintendent?
No, he was none of the above. None of the above.
So that's interesting, that because most people that become preachers, they try to say, well, your daddy was a preacher, so you're a preacher, or you got a head like a preacher. Right. But that was, how do you know God called you?
Can I tell you the experience? I was at a youth congress at Emmanuel in San Francisco. Bishop Hamilton, the late, was our youth president. And I was at the altar, a little boy. The Lord had put me on a fast. And that whole week I wouldn't eat. My mother tried to make me eat. I walked from 3rd Street in San Francisco, if anybody knows that, all the way over to the Fillmore district. It took me about 2 hours to walk because I missed the bus. And I went to the altar that night, and while I'm standing at the altar, I hear something say, "You've been called to preach." And I kind of look around because this is my first experience really hearing the voice of God or the Holy Spirit. And I just closed my eyes and began to praise God again. And it said, "Tell your pastor," and he called my pastor's name, "that you've been called to preach." And I went and sat down because I said, I done got the wrong spirit at the altar. So I got voices talking to me. But the next day, a brother who I'd met during that youth congress, he called me early Sunday morning. We become friends. And he called me early that Sunday morning. He said, I had a dream about you. I said, really? He said, you told your pastor you were called to preach. Wow. And we were kids. I mean, we're children, 11, 12 years old. But we were so committed to God that we were hearing God and hearing from God at that age.
Well, it seems like nowadays people don't think that children are called as much as like back in the day when you were called, they would cultivate the gift, as we called, you know.
Right.
They made us go through some rigorous type of cultivating. Sit down, pray,
Right.
fast,
Right.
read your Bible. You know, stop talking beyond your experience. Whereas now, young people seem as though they get the call and they're already taking engagements and
Right.
honorariums.
Right.
What is the difference with this culture that we're coming in that you see? And is there still young people really feeling the call? Do you sense that they kind of got away from that and they just want to go into this prototype type of leadership now?
From what I see, some of the differences are they had, and they're not going to like this word, control on us. They had control. And what I mean by that was they took time with us and they nurtured our gifts. Mm-hmm. But we started at the bottom. You started singing in the choir. I don't care if you were a minister, you still stayed in the operation of the church and in the confines, whereas nowadays you say it, and if your pastor tells you to sit down, I don't have to sit down.
Right.
And I go and start my own thing, and then I've got some wild other young people who say, yeah, I'm going with you, and before you know it, you've got a mess on your hands.
Wow, listen, you're saying some good things. Listen, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be back after this. So now, with these young people, like you said, they're making a lot of headway, a lot of noise. They got the audience. They have the social media down pat, and they say, "Hey, God called me to preach." So, hey, I'm starting a church up the street. But to me, when we were coming up, there was a such thing as spiritual warfare.
Right.
And it doesn't seem like they have encountered it. But I do know, I was talking to a brother the other day, and I was telling him how many mega pastors that I know that have had nervous breakdowns because they try to deal with this thing from a natural place, but they forget it's also a spiritual entity.
It's a spiritual warfare.
Mm-hmm.
When you leave the pulpit, you are dealing with everything you preach. It's going to come at you. If you preach victory, those demons of defeat are going to come at you. And I think that's part of the process that many, I'm not going to categorize everybody, but many have not learned that it's more than just the pulpit. It's more than just exciting the crowd. You have to have a spiritual walk with God. Mm-hmm. You have to have a spiritual relationship. So when you are attacked, you know, you said pastors losing their minds, won't call any names, but there was a minister in LA who committed suicide and had about 4,000 or 5,000 members. So when he left the pulpit, he was attacked. And one thing I think that we had a little different too, the organization we grew up in had the district, had the jurisdiction type of thing. We had friends.
Yeah.
We supported each other. We were there for each other. And when we got to those meetings together, we were excited because we were going to shout and dance with our friends that we haven't seen maybe since the last meeting. And I think, too, everybody now is an island. Everybody has their own conference, their own ministry, and there needs to be a camaraderie with the young ministry.
Now, now that's a great transition, speaking of an island. The pandemic put so many pastors, churches, in a precarious situation that some of them have closed down. Right. I was talking to a friend back east that he sold everything out of his church and gave it away because he closed down. And then some said, I'm not returning back to the four walls, but I'm going into I'm going to keep preaching streaming now, online. And I'm getting more support. I'm getting more people helping me. So what now from where you are, from this new medium of social media, Facebook, and all streaming, what do you think the body of the church is changing into, and what is your focus on, or how are you handling this situation now?
Well, I believe the pandemic helped a lot of people go to a whole nother level that they never would have gone to. They would have never left outside the four walls of their church. True. So that did help them. You have to, though, remember your assignment, preacher. It might be a good idea. I'm not going back. I'm shutting down. But is that what God said? Is that what God told you to do? And when God gives you an assignment, it's not going to be easy. You're always going to meet with opposition. So we have to always remember when God calls us, the devil's sitting there saying, okay, how can I counteract the call?
Well, counteract the call. Elaborate on counteract the call. Elaborate on that.
Well, God told you that you're a pastor, you're a leader. He gives you favor with the building. He gives you people to follow you. You find yourself in a pandemic. So you say, I'm going to quit that, and I'm just going to do Zoom. I'm just going to do social media. Well, okay, I'm getting more support with social media, but what am I doing with it? Right. What am I Yes, I'm getting more support, but how am I using it to build the kingdom? How am I using it to build the kingdom?
Well, you know what? I think what you're saying is right. Me and you've talked in so many different settings, on so many different levels when it comes to ministry, church, from the beginning to where we are now, to organizational structure, to even the old time, the night when the Pentecostal movement was erected in the earth. And when you look at what's happening to the Pentecostal church versus even when we came up, it was people said, well, I don't think it's nothing wrong with looking a certain way in the church. And the thing that I realized is it wasn't about so much how you look or how you portray yourself, but it was about saying, listen, I want to make sure that I'm not being a hindrance so people can hear the message instead of me.
Right.
And I think most people now, that's why the robes came in, because I like preaching in robes, because people can just listen to what you're saying and how you look. Because I think the percentage is, I think 70 or 60% of what people see when you walk in the room is how they judge you.
Right.
You walk in, they're judging you based on how you look before you. They look at you more than what you say.
Right.
Because that's what's going to help you get the message across, is how you prepare yourself.
Right.
And I think that's this new culture with the hip hop and the rapture and pop culture is making us as preachers feel like we don't need ties anymore. We don't need suits anymore. You know, let's cut our jeans up. Now, I don't know about you, but my mama used to be mad when my jeans had holes in them. Right. But now it's a fad. I remember when acid wash came out, and I was in the pulpit about 17, 18, preaching against acid wash, and my mama got an acid wash jean skirt. I was like, well, how you wearing acid wash, and I'm preaching against acid wash skirts? And that was so funny to me. I'm sitting here preaching, and she come walking in an acid wash skirt. I'm not saying that the salvation was in the clothes, but I will say that who you are, you will dress accordingly.
Yes.
In my opinion, you know, now
opinion.
We as African Americans, I don't know about you, but when I'm in Reno, with the majority of the town being Caucasian, when I dress like them, and dressed down, I got no respect really. But when I walked in my three-piece suit and my tie, they took me serious and they were ready to hear what I had to say.
Yes.
And that's just me. But with that being said, why is it that there's no more need for the appearance to dictate the size of a ministry? In other words, like Apostle Hitton, suited and booted.
At all times.
At all times. So why is it now that people are flocking to churches, this new generation, for of leaders that dress differently? What is it about the dress that's, in your opinion, that's causing these people to say, you know what, I'm going to that church because of the way he looks more than what he's saying?
I think sometimes what has happened is the generation between our generation, after us rather, should I say, remember we went through the drug era and you lost a lot of instruction in the home. Because when I was a little boy, and my nephews who are in their 30s, they went to church dressed a certain way, but they came out of a home that had structure. So when you're raising yourself, it's easier to put on some jeans than to go buy a three-piece suit. It's easier to put on some tennis shoes than to go buy some what we call church shoes. So then that came as, well, we want them in church, so let's let them come how they want to come, and that's fine. And I'm not saying anything against that. That's fine. But in that, it's supposed to be a growth process. You ought to know how to tie a tie. You ought to know how to dress yourself. A young lady should know how to be presentable, not just for church, even in the community. When you go on a job interview and things of that nature, we lost some of that with what we went through with the home being destroyed, Big Mama not being in the house anymore. Uncles not being in the house anymore. I never forget the gentleman who taught me how to tie a tie. My father got killed. I didn't have a father teach me how to tie a tie. And I can remember on an Easter Sunday, he came early to the house on his way to his church and taught me on the front porch how to tie a tie. Because we were wearing the clip-ons.
Right. And then back in the day, they say Bishop Mason said wearing a tie hindered him, so he stopped wearing ties and called it the devil. You know what I'm saying?
He was going somewhere and it made him late, and I think he missed his train. So if that's going to make me miss my assignment, I won't wear it no more.
And then also about the hair, straightening combs. Wasn't straightening combs at one time?
Oh man, you didn't. I can remember all that. You didn't press your hair, and I can remember Shirley Caesar told her pastor. He said, "You can't press your hair, but you can't wear an afro." She said, "Bishop, if I don't press it, it'll turn into an afro."
Well, on that segment, we got 3 minutes. Won't you encourage somebody and some pastors that may be dealing with some difficulty and wanting to quit and give up? Won't you encourage them and let them know that there's hope?
I want to say to everyone watching, every pastor, minister, this has been a season of challenge. The last 16 months has been unusual to us. But if I could give you any advice, if I could say anything to you, find yourself in prayer. There is a comfort in prayer that is unmatched by anything else. Regardless if it's depression, regardless if it's doubt, regardless if it's fear of your next move, have a little talk with Jesus. Just pray, man, woman, boy, girl. If you would find your place in prayer, or should I say, as you find your place in prayer, I promise you, God has a way of just healing you and strengthening you and building you up. Don't worry about being a good preacher. Just pray.
That's good, because it is time to pray. And I know one thing the Bible says, prayer changes things. If it don't change the circumstance, it'll change you.
Yes.
Farrah, how much time do we have? Do we have any questions back there, Farrah? No. All right, send your questions in, share, let people know that we're all live. And our next guest is Sharon Wynn. She's going to be talking. We're going to talk deep on this next segment, because this is my sister, so stay tuned. Tell somebody, John Wynn is on the air. right, all right, all right. We are back again. Dr. John Wynn live with my sister Sharon R. Rochelle Wynn. And she's written a book called Unmute Your Heart, A Voice of Victory, Overcoming Domestic Abuse. Now, it's interesting now, you know, the song says, I don't look like what I've been through. And so she ain't going to look like what she's been through, folks. But we're going to talk to my sister on a candid conversation because I know her. And I've known her for 51 years. We grew up together in Reno, Nevada. My father, the late Reverend Willie J. Wynn, and my mother, Rochelle Wynn. And Sharon is my younger sister. And the unfortunate thing is she would play with me, and she was my best friend until Lisa showed up. As soon as Lisa showed up, Sharon wanted to play with Lisa and not her big brother. But she's been through some things. She was married for 19 years, and 20 years. Was it 20 years? She was married. We both got married the same year. I got married in February. She got married in June. She got married in June 1991. And the guy, she was a great guy. You know, you think, you know, everybody thinks that he's a great guy, but he had different situations going on that were silent. And sometimes we don't know in domestic issues that there are silent things that go on in a relationship with a husband and a wife that you may not know, and we do not know how to always catch those situations. And so I do know her to be there. You was how old were you when you got married?
18.
You was 18 years old?
18 years old.
So 18 years old, you got married to this guy. He going to college. He loved the Lord.
Yeah.
He was a great preacher. You know, he was an athlete.
Yes.
He was an athlete. He played ball, and he seemed like he was a great guy. What happened? So when you was 18, when did you ever notice any signs of abuse in the beginning of the marriage?
No, I often say that you don't recognize signs. I was very young. So, you know.
You talk to me, girl.
I was young.
You're talking to your brother. I was young. I was impressionable.
I was impressionable. I was young.
He was young.
But the thing is, coming out of a home, I married out of the home. So the signs that were there were not easy to recognize because, you know, I was obedient, number one.
Okay.
I was a good kid, y'all.
Yeah, but we didn't see it though.
No,
with mom and daddy, their argument was, oh, Pudgy, that was it.
Yeah, we didn't see that.
We didn't see it. We didn't see abuse.
But the control that was there, and the insecurities that were there, they weren't noticeable because, you know, I was kind of being raised by him. So coming from home, going into a household where, you know, somebody can tell you what to do, you know,
you were 18?
What to wear. Yeah, I was young. I was, you know, I was still a child. I thought I was grown because I had older siblings. So that made me feel like I could handle, you know, a marriage and the different things that come along with it. But like you said, in our household, we didn't see fighting and yelling, and we didn't see screaming, and we didn't see all that stuff. So in my mind, as a young woman at that time, you know, you kind of, it's already patterned out for you of what you think it's supposed to look like. You know, mom she was the type of woman where she was just, you know, oh, Willie, you know, mom was. She's like, and I can't say that it was all bad or it was all good because, you know, you didn't know how to handle certain situations. So when these insecurities and jealousy and all this stuff creeps in, you don't really recognize it. You don't know what that is. You just think, oh, you know, they're just being this way.
Jealousies.
Yeah, you're like, oh, he's a little jealous. Oh, he don't.
Jealousy. What else was it? You said
insecurity, control.
Insecurity, control. So give me, in your opinion, what is control? Is control stay here? Because Daddy was controlling, but he wasn't controlling to the point of where it caused our mom to be afraid or insecure or fear for her life. So what kind of control would a domestic person or individual show?
The thing about domestic violence, it does not happen overnight. And that it's kind of subtle because the people that you're involved with, they're winning your trust. They're winning you over to trust them. You know? So as little things kind of creep up, because there were things that were there, such as the jealousy, the insecurity, those behaviors were there, but it wasn't until the later years. See, I was young. I was growing up, trying to grow up and become a woman, which was, to me, terrifying to him. So he would say, I never want to lose you, but your behavior and the actions that you're showing me, how can you expect somebody to stay the full run of things? So things got worse. Things got worse. And like you said, this was a good person, but a lot of stuff in the latter years I didn't share. I didn't tell. And then we had a ministry. What was I going to say? This is somebody who's influential, who has, influence over people. I mean, what am I going to say? And then at the same time, too, which is part of why this book is called Unmute Your Heart, I didn't have a voice. What was I going to say? Who was going to believe me? So all these things would flood my mind as they were, coming at me, as the years begin to, go on. And I was growing up, but this was causing a problem because now that jealousy that was there was beginning to just get totally out of control.
Okay, okay. So now you observe the controlling, you observe the jealousy, but now you're starting to get or have children.
Yeah.
You're raising children. 1 comes, 2 comes, 3 comes, 4 comes, 5 comes. How does this affect you as a mother and a husband? I mean, what is the kid's role in this subtlety? What is it?
You know what? So in the book where I talk about the crossfire, caught in the crossfire, speaking of the children who are caught in the crossfire, a lot of times parents are very, very selfish because number one, we're trying to survive. We're trying to keep from going under, which was my case. I was trying to survive and I was trying to cover and protect him because I didn't want my kids, I wanted to kind of keep the image that they saw, although there was stuff that was going on in the household now. And, as they got older, I found out, I couldn't hide everything. But you're trying to keep things as normal as you possibly can.
So when people are saying, but you know what, he's a man of God, he's a pastor, you shouldn't expose him, you should be quiet about that. God will work it out. Just be quiet, daughter. Shh. The Lord will work it out. What do you do? What do you do?
Well, I mean, that was in the years ago, churches, that was the thing. Stay there, pray it out. But then there comes a time when behaviors that begin to work on you mentally, because see, domestic violence, first of all, is not just all physical. It's not just all physical. It's emotional. It's verbal. It's mental.
Give us some verbal.
Tearing you down.
In which way?
Tearing down your self-esteem to the point to where you don't believe that you can be any more than what they tell you, you are. If they're telling you anything good about yourself at all, which a lot of times that's not the case. But it's to diminish you as a person, to get you to believe what they say. It's a war of words that come against you. Naturally so, and then spiritually, because you start in your mind, you begin to battle those things that somebody has said about you that make you feel like, and after a while, when you've been groomed and you've been going through this time and time and time again, you're nothing, ain't nobody gonna want you. You got 5 kids, nobody's gonna think you're worth anything. You can't write a book, you're stupid, whatever it is. These war of words that the enemy sets out to destroy you, to totally cause you to buy into it, this is what's going to cause you to sometimes believe what is said. You could take a person and constantly tell them something negative until they don't believe anything positive about themselves. They don't believe they can overcome anything because they've been told for so long. And like I said, it was subtle. So the thing about it was, I thank God for my foundation. I thank God because I had a mother and father, and I had parents that taught us how to pray, that taught us how to, and I know this is not everybody's story. Some people don't have, it's twofold, natural and spiritual. Naturally, I had to go to counseling. I had to go talk to somebody about what was going on. And there were things that I was going through that I didn't even know there was a medical term for it until I started talking. And then I'm going, oh my God, that's what that was? Or because what happens is 9 times out of 10, the person that inflicts the abuse upon you, there are things that they did not deal with in their childhood that they carry over into their adulthood. So time stops for them. When they were exposed to trauma, things happening in the family, even though we have to maintain our deliverance. Like you said, yeah, I believe they love the Lord, and I believe that God had come to help and change them. But if we don't stay in a place spiritually, the enemy can come in, and if he binds the strong man up, he can take the spoils. He can destroy the family. The Bible speaks of that. But there comes a time when even in a marriage, you have to be honest about what your demons are and deal with your demons.
So let me ask you a question. With that being said, I know a lot of times domestic abuse predators always like to apologize.
It's called gaslighting.
What is it?
Gaslighting.
Okay, why is it called gaslighting?
Because, here's an example. I'm gonna tear you down. Then I'm gonna come back and say, baby, I'm so sorry. Come on, let's go to dinner. Come on, I didn't mean that. And you're telling me what I want to hear. You're telling me what I need to hear, because now I think it's a release for me, and it's, okay, all right, we're gonna get through this. It's gonna be okay. But then.
So how often do you, because you talk about unmuting your heart being a place of forgiveness, overcoming. So you forgive him after he gaslights, and how often times and how many gaslights can do you?
How many? Sometimes for some women, they say the average woman will leave 10 times before she actually really, really, really leaves the situation. Mm-hmm. So we just want things to be okay. We just want things to be normal, as we call it, whatever, normal. Mm. We want it to be worked out, because in our heart of hearts, we want to keep our family together. We don't want a divorce, and I mean, I didn't want a divorce. I wanted to stay there, even though it was going to be a very unhealthy situation. I mean, God had to deliver me out of that. And to this day, there are some things that have not changed, and I ain't nowhere around.
Well, I think that the deepest thing about what happened with you as a first lady, you helped build the church. You were over the children's ministry. Church was thriving. He was speaking all over the place. He's so enraged with his own jealousies and insecurities, mm-hmm. that he starts thinking that you're cheating on him. He starts having dreams or visions that you're having emotional cheating, and he becomes so paranoid over you that he gets a divorce. He divorces you by nailing the divorce paperwork on the front door. How did that make you feel when you saw that?
Well, that day I was pulling up to the house. Actually, when I saw it, it was taped. But when I saw it, I just kind of knew what it was. And, one of my daughters was driving my car that day. And when I looked, when we pulled up in the driveway, I was trying to beat her to the door, because I kind of suspected what it was. And it was what I thought it was.
So when you got, you bought a brand new home. I think, what was that, 5,000 square feet?
4,000.
4,000 square feet home. You had a business, a thriving business, making great money. And I want people to know, just because you're making great money, she had a brand new house built from the ground up in California. And here, this guy has written a book. He wrote a book about you, the fragrance of a woman. He's writing books speaking about how to get involved in relationships and helping everybody else's relationships, how to be good. What in the world was that?
Phew. What was that? That's a good question, because I was the one that supposedly was, the reason for that book, which was it was all good. I can't even really begin to tell you where it got so just crazy. But it turned and it shifted. But I know we were in service one day, and I felt the shift. I was sitting in the service, and I literally felt a shift. And it was almost like the shift happened, but I didn't know how to stop it.
Shift, folks. Shift, S-H-I-F-T.
T. Let me tell you, that and that. I didn't know it was a shift. And probably some of the other. But it happened. It happened. And I didn't know how to stop it. It was like a whirlwind that came in. Because there was nothing I could say or do to convince and make, the individual understand that this was the enemy. This was the enemy. And I knew it. I knew it. But like the word of God says, as I said earlier, when the strong man is bound up, the enemy can come in and destroy families, tear down homes. And then the thing about it is, like we talked about, you talking about the children, they're caught in the crossfire of all of this. And it's very careful how, when you go through. I know it's difficult because I was there. I had to definitely focus on trying to stay healthy, trying to stay, in a place where I didn't want to, because I wanted to do some stuff. I wanted to hurt some people. I wanted to do some stuff, y'all.
So I know you wanted, but your voice of victory, how did you get into the victory mode from wanting to get somebody to where you saw your kids being in the crossfire to where he becomes erratic and slandering your name on the airwaves, slandering your name all on Facebook, slandering your name everywhere? How did you get the voice of victory and over this domestic abuse?
The voice of victory for me, I was praying and I was complaining, talking to the Lord about what was going on. And the Lord just said to me, he said, you need more fruit of the Spirit. And at the time I didn't understand. And I'm thinking, really, Lord? One thing we have to remember is to submit. When we hear the voice of the Lord, you have to submit and listen. I just wanted to be healed. I was so broken. I was so devastated. I was so hurt. I was going through a depression. I was going through, it was so painful. But the Lord said, you need more fruit of the Spirit. And when he said that to me.
So what are the fruits of the Spirit?
Well, let me tell you how it played out for me.
All right.
When he spoke that to me, because he took me to that verse in Luke where the vineyard keeper had to dig around the tree because that tree that was there was not bearing fruit. Okay? And then he said, give me another year and let me work around it. And we're personified as trees. And I began to think about the tree because my fruit that I had was being yanked off, plucked off, and torn off. And I describe it as leaving branches with broken ends because my joy was gone, my peace was gone, my love. I had no love. And we know that a tree that bears fruit can offer nutrients. It can offer, shelter. A tree that bears fruit it's healthy. It can do so many things. But he said, let me dig around it. And when you're digging around a tree, even in the natural sense, you're breaking up the roots so that the water of the Word of God can begin to penetrate. And the Word of God had to begin to penetrate down on the inside of me. See, this is why our connection to God is so important, because as he was digging around that tree so that the water can begin to wet the soil and cause this tree to live again, God began to talk to me about being dug around. Sometimes before you get healthy, you got to go to a drought, a dead place, because that dead place, you're going to learn something. There's something in that journey that God wants to teach you. Then he went on to say, now I need to fertilize you. What is the fertilizer? The fertilizer would speak about the people who we have that are ministering to us, the people that are pouring into our spirit. You can't allow, when you're going through, you cannot allow anybody to just pour into you and to speak into you. When you want to get to a healthy place, which is what I wanted. And let me just say, this is a book of healing. It's not a book of slander. It's not a book to tear anybody down. This book is a book of healing because it took me some places biblically and spiritually that helped me to thrive in God.
We're going to take a break, and we're going to come back and talk more about her book, Unmute Your Heart. We'll be back after this. All right, we're back. I am Dr. John Wynn with the live show today. Our guest is Sharon R. Wynn, Rochelle Wynn. We're talking about the voice of victory, overcoming domestic violence. And we're going to go back into what we were saying about the soil and digging around the tree.
Yes.
And with the fruits of the Spirit. Continue
And the fertilization process.
Yes. Yeah.
So this is about you. You know, when you're being fertilized, we have to submit to people who are there to support us, to help us. A lot of times people go through things, but they don't want anybody to tell them anything. If you don't want help, and if then you kind of shun away from people who are going to tell you the truth when you want to just kind of do you. But that's how God began to speak to me. He began to speak to me even about a relocating process. The relocating process would speak about, in the natural, a tree that is being relocated has to be relocated with the root ball attached. If the root ball attached, if it's not attached, when you go to replant that tree will not survive. That tree will not live. Mm-hmm. The root ball would speak of our testimony of redemption, of where God has brought us from. Sometimes you have to relocate mentally, emotionally, psychologically, and sometimes in severe abusive situations, you need to be relocated into another healthy location. So these are the things that God began to speak to me. He began to deal with me about these things and the pruning process, which is to cut away some things. You've got to get rid of people in your life who are toxic, who deplete you of becoming fruitful. Mm-hmm. The pruning process in the natural is something that is going to make you more fruitful. And I really believe that God took me through some things to produce more out of me, you know, as I was going through what I was going through, because I wanted to be healed and I wanted God to have the victory through what I had experienced in my life personally.
So when you talk about finding your voice, how does that work? What, finding your voice? Because I know right now there's people that are saying, "Oh, she don't know what abuse is," because some people have been through abuse where they have lost their lives.
Yeah.
Women, Lisa, of course, our sister that deals with domestic violence. Mm-hmm.
No hands lifted,
and deal with certain abuse that is more severe. But what we don't deal with is how abuse in the church can be just as abusive when it comes to a mental. And where the man or woman will shut you down vocally.
Yeah.
So how do you find your voice? What does that mean in your book? When you talk about that in your book?
Unmute Your Heart was a part of me finding my voice.
All right.
And the Lord just told me, hey, start writing. I was at work one night and I just began to write. Because for one thing, I was trying to figure out what happened, what just happened in my life. So I had to take courage. I had to take courage. And me finding my voice and unmuting my heart. Unmuting your heart would speak of releasing toxic emotions of unforgiveness, anger, bitterness, pain. It's twofold because you release that so that you can receive love, so that you can receive peace, joy, happiness. You can receive those things because you can